What a show. What a show we have on tap for you guys tonight. Got a loaded episode of Carving Up Live on tap for you guys. Gonna start, of course, naturally, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, my beloved Steelers, who reign supreme in the AFC North by the skin of our teeth against the Baltimore Ravens. Give my reaction to that, and a kudos to Aaron Rodgers for how he played in the fourth quarter last night. Also, what's next for the Baltimore Ravens after this. Also, to discuss Seahawks-Niners, kind of a game that got swept under the rug because of the craziness we saw in the NFL on Sunday. Why Seattle, to me, is by far the scariest team in the NFC, and why the Niners are just flat out of gas. Myles Garrett breaks the sack record, kind of to give the context behind the impressiveness of that. The Browns, speaking of them, are fools to move on from Kevin Stefanski. Getting to that, and of course, a recap of the rest of Week 18 around the National Football League. Also, a Drake Maye versus Matthew Stafford segment. So carving it up, as always, is absolutely loaded on a Monday playoff preview show. So let's drop the B, baby.
The final play of the regular season for the final spot in the playoffs. Tyler Luke from 44. Snap good. Hold it. The kick is no good. It is wide right. And the Steelers are the champions of the North.
Here we go. Like I said, folks, what an absolute treat it is to be in studio today. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, on Twitch, on X, and on Instagram. I am Bryson Carver. I'm thrilled to be with you guys on this Monday, and it's weird because, you know, on Friday, I picked the Steelers to win. I did think Pittsburgh would beat Baltimore, although I didn't play out the way that I think anybody thought that it would. Obviously, we'll leave the show with that in a second, but I said at the end of the show, there's a part of me that will be pulling for the Baltimore Ravens, only in the sense of, man, I just want to be free of the mediocrity that Mike Tomlin has subjected Steelers fans to for the last decade. But then Ian Rappaport comes out and he's like, you know what? Tomlin may just walk away regardless of how the season ends. So I'm like, okay, at this point, I guess I got to pull for my team if the outcome of Tomlin's fate in Pittsburgh has nothing to do with the outcome of this game Sunday night. And the Steelers survive, ladies and gentlemen, to win the division. Again, we got so much to talk about. We got the playoffs that are set in the National Football League. I know we all couldn't be more excited to be, pat myself on the back a little bit. We did predict on Friday to a T what the format would look, or what the bracket would look like. And so the matchups are what I kind of expect them to be. Kind of give a preview for some of those later in the show. Got a lot of comments. My man Tim Barnard, shout out to Tim, the Boston Sports Summit, and my co-host on Saturday Morning Tailgate. He's already railing about my Stafford versus Drake Maye takes. Buddy, that was 2 hours before the show. Like, give me a chance to make the argument later. But shout out to Tim. Check out the Boston Sports Summit every, I believe, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Basically, right after my Wednesday shows, or I kind of lead into his indirectly. We got a lot going on off the grid. My guy Sal, shout out to Sal's in the comments. Look at this fit, black and gold, baby. And he says, we need to catch these deep balls. Bring DK back, baby. Let's go. Listen, DK being back next week is huge, and we'll talk about that today and throughout the week, I'm sure, and next Monday, because the Steelers don't play until Monday against the Houston Texans. But, of course, there's only one way to start the show. But first, in the most improbable, in the most heart-stopping, heart-attacking, just crazy of a game as you could possibly imagine, it is a Black and Yellow Victory Monday, ladies and gentlemen. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Indeed it is. And it wasn't easy for my Pittsburgh Steelers, who barely survived the Baltimore Ravens by a final score of 26-24 last night. And I got to admit, there were multiple moments in that game. Ravens get out to a 10-0 start. Classic Baltimore, right? Their season comes to an end because they blew a double-digit lead, albeit they had the double-digit lead early in the first half. But still, it's 10-0. The passing game is non-existent. Now, DK Metcalf not being there doesn't help matters. Darnell Washington not being out there doesn't help matters. Washington, unfortunately, isn't going to be back even for the playoffs, which sucks. He's got a broken arm. Heal up, big Washington. But the passing game's not working. Derrick Henry's running it all over us. I'm like, okay, here we go. We're just going to get – this is a classic, right? This is, in effect, a playoff game, even if it isn't officially a playoff game. And the Steelers are going to get blown out because they always get blown out in their first playoff game. And then the offense gets it going. And Mike Tomlin decides to go for it. Tomlin was aggressive on his fourth downs, which I give him credit for. I've been on him this year about not doing that. But then he run quarterback sneak, or tush push really, with Connor Hayward on fourth and one is very misleading. It was like 4th and 1.5. Didn't get it. End of the first half, pass interference on Freiermuth in the end zone. You decide to go for the touchdown. Completely agree with that. You're on an outside toss with Kenneth Gainwell. We don't have enough blockers outside. Like, what are we doing? The Seals just keep kicking themselves the foot over and over and over. Zay Flowers gets open twice in the fourth quarter on the exact same play to the point where Collinsworth is in the booth next to Rico, like, oh my God, he's open again. He's like about to fall over, it feels like, in the booth watching this game. So you have that. Then you have Aaron Rodgers, who we're going to give a lot of love to in just a second because he absolutely deserves it. But Aaron Rodgers, who supposedly they were saying throughout the broadcast, and I've noticed all 17 games as a Steelers fan, Arthur Smith's the OC. Aaron calls the plays at the line of scrimmage. Aaron's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever at audibly at the line of scrimmage. Well, there's a malfunction with his helmet. He can't hear the play calls. So he's running up to Arthur Smith. He can't hear the play call. Bro, you're one of the smartest quarterbacks ever at the line of scrimmage. You call your own plays. Like, what are we doing? You burn your last 2 timeouts. Nearly cost you the game, even if Pittsburgh does score. You give up the long touchdown to Zay Flowers again. You go down, score, do what you got to do. Again, talk about that in just a moment. On 4th down in the season, Ravens at midfield. By the way, this comes after a Boswell miss, obviously. 4th in the season, Tomlin's defense, the highest paid defense in the National Football League. Give up a completion downfield to Isaiah Likely before, thank the good Lord Almighty, the football gods were on our side, and Tyler Lute missed the game-winning kick that would have given the division to the Baltimore Ravens. Instead, it's Pittsburgh, and the biggest reason for that, at least as it relates to last night's game, is indisputably, and I've given him a lot of crap all year. In many cases, he's deserved it. But last night, folks, this is the first time, legitimately, in almost 5 years exactly, that Aaron Rodgers has had his back against the wall, do or die game, and has risen to the occasion. Show the total numbers against the Baltimore Ravens, because obviously those are pretty impressive numbers. 1 touchdown, no picks, 65% completion, 294 through the air. He still can't get that 300-yard passing game. It's only once since December of 2021. But a 90 passer rating, 65.8 QBR, and of course the game-winning drive. But Aaron Rodgers' magic came in the fourth quarter when the Steelers' defense, predictably, and Cam Hayward played awesome. TJ Watt had the pick. Aside from that, kind of a classic Steelers defensive effort under Mike Tomlin the last few years. Underachieved. Couldn't get a stop late. In fact, Zay Flowers is open as far from, where I'm sitting to the other side of the state of Tennessee. And Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back drives, shows up big. Show Aaron's fourth quarter numbers because they're exceptional. A touchdown, no interceptions, 78.9% completion, 133 yards in the fourth quarter alone, a 130 rating. And you see right there, he had the go-ahead drive to put the Steelers up before the Steelers defense gave up a score to Baltimore. And then the game-winning drive to win it when it was all said and done. Of course, end up getting a miss by Tyler Lute late. And he's doing so, by the way, with this at wide receiver. Like, again, no DK Metcalf, obviously not a receiver, but Darnell Washington also not in the lineup. So you got Calvin Austin in the lineup, fresh off a hamstring injury. He's got 31 catches on the year. Adam Thielen, who's been a Steeler for a month, 11 catches on the year. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, his buddy, who he would not stop throwing the ball too late against Cleveland last week, also has 11 catches in the year. Scotty Miller, the Tampa Bay hero against Rodgers in the championship game years ago, 10 catches on the year. Ben Skoranek, Pro Bowler Ben Skoranek, but as a special teamer, not a wide receiver, because he's only got 4 catches on the year and he had 0 last night. Now, of course, you have Pat Freiermuth. Johnny Smith had some contributions, run the football. Kenneth Gainwell can catch the ball in the backfield. Listen, Omar Khan, make sure Kenneth Gainwell's a Steeler in 2026. Do not let that guy in the building. But I said coming into this season, didn't trust Aaron's leadership, didn't trust his ability to play behind a mediocre offensive line, and that's on their best days. And last night they weren't awful, but a lot of that is because of the fact Baltimore just doesn't have a pass rush. Baltimore's been beat up front all year, so you shouldn't get annihilated. I had concerns about his ability to throw the deep ball, concerns that were validated. He missed, I think it was Johnny Smith on a wide open ball on the left side in the first half. But on the times he absolutely had to hit the deep balls with no DK Metcalf, threw the ball on a rope to Adam Thielen in the second half. Did the same thing with Pat Freiermuth on the catch that got Pittsburgh down to scoring territory, their second to last drive of the game. And did so, of course, on Calvin Austin. Chidobe Awuzie slipped on the play, but Calvin Austin made the catch for the touchdown. Aaron hit him right in the money. Credit where it's due. He was excellent. When you needed Aaron Rodgers to show up in the biggest moments, folks, he hasn't been there the last few years. NFC Championship game against Tampa. First down and goal, second down and goal, third down and goal. Nothing against the Bucs. LaFleur settles for the field goal controversially, but Aaron didn't do his part. The year after, MVP of the league again. At home against the San Francisco 49ers led by Jimmy Garoppolo. Scored 10 points. 2022 season finale against Detroit. I believe they scored 16 in a game they needed to get to the playoffs. Achilles tear in 23 last year was bad in clutch situations, as we talked about all season long on this show. But he stepped up when it mattered most last night, and he has to be given credit for that, especially no Metcalf, no Washington, a defense that isn't exactly backing him up, a coach who darn sure ain't backing him up. I know some Steelers fans and some NFL media and prognosticators and the Mike Tomlin acolytes are saying, hey, see, Mike Tomlin's job is safe. Let's see how this playoff game comes out, because I've seen the last 5 Steeler playoff games, and they've all been pretty ugly. But for Aaron himself, could have been the final game he ever played in the NFL, and this is what he had to say to Melissa Stark after the game.
You clinched the division. You're headed to the playoffs. What does this one mean to you personally?
It's pretty emotional, honestly. It's been a great year. So I'm thankful for these guys and excited to be going to the playoffs for the first time in a long while.
Does that mean you're riding off into the sunset after this?
No, it's been a grinding year.
Yeah.
And 2 years before that were tough as well. So it's been an absolute blessing to be here with these fans and this organization and Mike T and the leadership that we got with these guys. And I think we found that little bit, that's something special, which is belief tonight on the offensive side. And I'm proud of our guys, the way we responded in the fourth quarter.
He was excellent. And listen, as far as the game on Monday against Houston, we'll break it down over the course of the week, and then next Monday, obviously. Listen, they've got probably the best pass rush in football. It's either them or Denver. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. They got guys that can get to the quarterback. The good news is Aaron gets the ball out of his hands quick. The question, though, with DK Metcalf back in the lineup, now you're going to want to stretch the ball deep a little bit. Now the defense has to kind of respect you as opposed to just playing in the box the whole way, loading the box the whole way. So will Aaron be able to have those deep balls? We'll see. But I'm sure I'll get to the comments just a second. I'm sure my guy Alfred and others will apologize to Aaron Rodgers. I'm a man of my word. Back before the season, I said, or maybe it was the early part of the season when the Steelers got off to a 4-1 start. I said, I'll apologize to Aaron if he breaks the Tomlin curse, which is, to this point, 9 seasons, I guess 8 full seasons. This would be 9 without a playoff win. He breaks that, and he's got a home game to do it. Extra rest against the Texans defense that looked kind of shaky yesterday against Riley Leonard. You do that, successful season. If the Steelers are one of the 8 teams left with all the skepticism I have about this team, hey, I'll take it. Anything else beyond that's gravy. So that was gutsy win. Kudos to Aaron Rodgers. Kudos to the Steelers for getting the job done. Before we move on to Baltimore, we got a bunch of comments up in here. Let's see what we got. We got, right on cue, my guy Alfred. I've been waiting for this day since training camp. You're going to have to wait another week, Alfred, because the apology ain't coming unless we win a playoff game. Again, I wanted to hear apology. Well, no, I'm definitely not giving it to Tomlin. Tomlin does not deserve an apology. He was awful in the fourth quarter. I mean, situationally, the burning timeouts thing was on Aaron, but you are a defensive guy. Get a stop. And I know Lamar's special. Listen. Some of those Lamar Jackson plays where Zay Flowers was open by 10 yards. Collinsworth screaming on the booth on NBC oh my gosh, they got him again on the exact same play that they got him in the first half. Tomlin does not get an apology. Yeah, that's for dang sure. Aaron, wait one more week and he will. Come on and eat humble pie. Listen, not yet, but I'm happy. I will be thrilled to be wrong. Thrilled to be wrong on the Steelers. He says, AFC North champs, God put Aaron Rodgers on your team just for you. It has been I'll say this, better season than I could have anticipated, Alfred. Did not see this team winning the AFC North. And sure, there's injuries to Burrow and there's injuries to, Lamar Jackson. Of course, that plays into the picture. No question about it. But you needed to count on Aaron when it was all said and done. And by and large, throughout his career, I've said it for years on the show, like, there was a time where Aaron Rodgers had fewer game-winning drives than Tannehill. He might still. I don't think he does anymore. But that was a thing. He was clutch last night, and you got to give him credit. My guy Connor, nice costume. Listen, it might as well be a costume, right? Happy Steelers fan. Got the terrible towels, which, by the way, shout out. We weren't able to get the footage on time. Shout out, to the Catholic priest before the game. Went to the very end zone in which Tyler Loop was kicking in that direction and sprinkled a little bit of holy water on that football field, on that end zone. So all I got to say is don't let that guy at Pittsburgh. Okay, don't let him out of Acrisure Stadium. Make sure he's in the building next week against Houston. And if we win, fly him to Denver or New England, wherever we're going. Alfred, you didn't want Aaron on your team, and just weeks ago you wanted the Tomlin divorce. I still might want the Tomlin divorce, Alfred. I still might. Chris Boswell got bailed out by the Ravens kicker. Did he ever? Listen, man. When Boswell misses that extra point, because first, initially it's jubilation. Oh my gosh, Aaron hits Calvin Austin for the go-ahead touchdown. Boswell missed the extra point. That's the second clutch kick that Boswell's missed in the last 3 weeks because he missed the big one against Detroit. People kind of forget it because of the controversial ending, but 2 weeks ago against the Lions, Chris Boswell misses the kick that would have put Pittsburgh 8 to where, worst case, Detroit ties you and you go to overtime. Whereas instead, you missed it and Detroit almost won the game. So, I'm a Chris Boswell fan. He's been a great kicker in Pittsburgh for the last decade. We got to, once kickers go south, they tend to kind of stay south. So I hope that that's not something that's going to be a concern moving forward for Pittsburgh. Certainly on Monday night against the Houston Texans. But, against Sal saying, not to mention he was throwing at nobody. He wasn't throwing at anybody. Again, we could show the graphic one more time. Do we have it? Here you go. This was Aaron Rodgers' receiving core. And if I talk all the time about doing more with less, what are you when your back's against the wall? What are you when, things aren't going your way? I've gotten on Brock Purdy about that for years, not so much this year per se, but Calvin Austin, Adam Thielen, Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Scotty Miller, Ben Skronk. That's his receiving core last night. And getting DK Metcalf back is gigantic for this team, to say the very least. He says, that's why you do business. That's just Alfred. This is why you do business with a 42-year-old. If the Steelers beat the Texans, I'm gifting you a Rodgers jersey. Listen, if Steelers beat the Texans, I'll accept a Rodgers jersey. I will. And he says, you must wear that jersey on air. Deal. Listen, man. Listen, Aaron has already been, credit where it's due, he's already been the best Steelers quarterback since Big Ben. That's not saying a ton, but he has. The last 6 weeks? No, 5 weeks. He's got 6 touchdowns, no picks. He's been efficient. He spread the football around. Listen, I stand by what I said last week. I thought it was an embarrassing performance what he put on display against the Browns, where he is going out of his way to make sure Myles Garrett doesn't get the record and basically tanks the offense until the last drive when, shocker, we actually get the ball rolling. That's a tough challenge next week, but there's 2 things that go in Pittsburgh's favor in that playoff game, historically speaking. And we'll talk about this. I'm sure we'll have graphics for it. Number 1, Tomlin, for all his faults, as a home dog, doesn't lose much. You saw it last night. That's why I had Pittsburgh plus 3.5 and straight up, but I felt very good about Pittsburgh covering this game. And number 2, Mike Tomlin, and I think Bill Cowher. So just the Steelers have not lost a Monday Night Football home game in over 3 decades. I think it goes back to Chuck Noll, the last time the Steelers lost on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh, PA. So that bodes well. It's either that or the streak of, do we have that graphic? This streak of how the Steelers have started in their last 5 playoff games. Hopefully it's the former. I'm hoping so. But Lord have mercy, what a game. So I'll take the terrible towel off. Take the shades off. Listen, I will be ecstatic if we can beat Houston on Monday Night Football next week. Again, extra rest. You're coming off the jubilation and the momentum of winning a game like this, an emotional game like this. This gives you an opportunity, extra rest to, all right, take a deep breath. We're in. Now let's game plan for a Houston, Texas team. I think it's won 8 in a row, 8 in a row, 9 in a row, something like that. In a defense that is absolutely terrifying, although they didn't show it yesterday. On the Ravens side. So again, My discussion, everybody's discussion on both of these teams, completely different if one kick goes through. If Tyler Luton makes that kick from 44 yards out, we're having a completely different discussion today. But with Baltimore, listen, you can go back and check the tape. I said it week 1. First game of the season. Remember they were playing Buffalo. They were up 15 points in the fourth quarter. Ended up losing 41-40. While I have said for years on this show that the two biggest overreactions of the NFL season, and I still maintain this, the Monday after week 1, because we're starved of football, and we get football, we're having all these hot takes, and then the day after the Super Bowl, because it's the last thing we saw. That recency bias is a real thing. It's how we feel when we go to a movie theater. A great movie that maybe has a bad ending, or a TV show. That's how it is with fans and media and how we have our takes during the season. Overreaction Monday. But I came out that Monday after week 1. I said, yeah, that's not a contender. I don't care. And this is before all the injuries. I don't care about the roster. I don't care about the championship pedigree of the coach. John Harbaugh obviously won a Super Bowl back in 2012. I don't care that Lamar Jackson is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm giving Lamar one down year doesn't take him out of the top 5 for me. I can't do that to the guy. And last night we could show you last night, Lamar Jackson was sensational in the fourth quarter against Pittsburgh. 2 touchdowns, no picks, 75% completion. 172 passing yards on 6 completions is insane. And a 156.3 ring. So Lamar was special, but more on that in a moment. I said, if that's in you, blowing a 15-point lead, by the way, to the team that you lost to in the playoffs, by the way, so you'd think there'd be more of a sense of urgency than there was. Conservative play calling by Harbaugh and Todd Monken, the defense, and Josh Allen special, we know that, but could not get a stop when it mattered most. As a favorite in that game, if I remember correctly, Baltimore was favored to win that game. I can't trust you. Not based on your playoff track record. And you saw that over the course of this entire season. Even when Lamar Jackson went down, they had a couple of nice wins, oddly with Tyler Huntley against Chicago and against last week against Green Bay, where Derrick Henry has probably the best game any running backs had all season. There's moments where, wait, why is Derrick Henry off the field in the last 12 minutes against New England? Like, what? You're rolling. This is a game you need. Up double digits on the Patriots. What's going on? Sometimes the defense is hot. Sometimes the defense is cold. Losing Kyle Hamilton last night obviously hurt their cause. He is, without question, the most important defensive player on that Baltimore Ravens team. No question about it. But now you find yourself, if you're a Ravens fan and the Ravens organization, in a very, very weird spot. So we didn't talk about it on this show. But last week, forgive me if I can't remember the publication, it was the Baltimore Sun or something like that. It was a local paper in Baltimore. Comes out with as scathing an article as you will see about forget a starting NFL quarterback, or forget a superstar NFL quarterback, but a starting NFL quarterback. What was said about Lamar Jackson. That was obviously leaked to the Baltimore media from somebody within the Ravens organization. Falls asleep in meetings, plays too many video games, isn't as committed as we'd like him to be, all these different things. So now you have a situation where, okay, based on the fact Lamar Jackson only has a couple of years left his deal, like he's going to look for a new contract. Because in this recent contract, he's won a league MVP, could have easily won another one, and yes, had a down year in 2025. But his track record is what it is. Not a great postseason quarterback, but sensational, best quarterback in football by and large during the regular season. Then you had the Harbaugh component onto it, where it's Ravens have blown 14 double-digit leads since, I think, 2022. Leads the NFL. Blew another one last night. Again, it kind of got lost in the shuffle because of the insane ending, but the Ravens were up 10-0, with the Steelers having no momentum on offense. Some of that's coaching. Some of that's execution on the part of the players. Like, that's what it comes down to. And if you're Baltimore, man, the reality is this. Your offense is centered on 2 individuals, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. As great as Derrick Henry is, and again, I know Ravens fans are going to be saying, oh, you've been saying this for 2 years now, like the fall of Derrick Henry. First of all, he wasn't quite as good this year as he was a year ago. Now he ran for 2,000 yards in 2024. He's only overshadowed because Saquon almost broke Dickerson's record. But Derrick Henry, at the end of the day, he's going into year 11. He's in his 30s. Like, by and large, running backs, once they hit a certain age, they can be productive. They can be key pieces to an offense, but not necessarily the driving force of the offense. and think if you're a Baltimore in these last few years. Because if you want to call it an excuse, you want to call it a reason, depending on your point of view, the whole thing with the Buffalo Bills and they're falling short in Super Bowls. Or sorry, not in Super Bowls, in the playoffs. We keep running to Kansas City and Mahomes. Like, what do you want us to do? That, to a degree, that's kind of fair. Ben never beat Tom Brady in the playoffs. Philip Rivers never beat Tom Brady in the playoffs. Like, it happens when you run into an all-time legend, Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame guy. Baltimore only ran to Kansas City one time, 2023. And for the record, Lamar was awful in that game. In this run, 2019, you're the top seed in the conference, 14-2, Lamar's MVP of the league. You get blown off the field by the 6th seed Tennessee Titans. Then you fast forward to 2023, one seed again, lost to Kansas City as a favorite at home. Last year, favored on the road against Buffalo, you lose that game. This year, Vegas had the Ravens as the favorites to win Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California. Like, this has been the most underachieving organization over the last 5 years. Like, there's got to be some change. I think the front office does a good job. They drafted well, by and large. Ravens historically have been one of the most well-run organizations of the league over the last 25, 30 years. But when you come down to it, I mean, I think there's a stat like quarterback and head coach duos, if they win a Super Bowl together, it happens in the first 5 years. Lamar and Harbaugh been together 8. Like, it's not going to happen with those two. And you shouldn't move on from Lamar. If this is a repeat of the 2023 offseason where it's like, do the Ravens really need Lamar? This is a world-class generational talent. This is a 2-time league MVP. Could have easily been a 3-time MVP a year ago. Has he underachieved in the playoffs? Yeah. So Peyton Manning, who's a Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame guy. Like, eventually you can get over that hump. I don't think it's like a James Harden situation. And again, to Lamar's credit, last night, part of the reason I picked Pittsburgh to win this game is, listen, Lamar and Aaron have not been their best in the biggest games in recent years. I just think the Pittsburgh defense at home, TJ Watt's back in the line. Lamar's been hurt all year. He's rusty. And let's be honest, Lamar hasn't been great in big games. The greatest compliment I think any of us as fans can pay an athlete when they're on the field, when they're on the playing surface, is there a natural fear that comes through as a fan, like, oh God, oh shoot, they're going to make a play, they're going to beat us. And that's how I felt in the fourth quarter every time Lamar Jackson had the football. When he's dodging sacks from Alex Highsmith and Herbig and TJ Watt, I'm like, oh my, he's going to beat us. And for a moment, it looked like he did with the pass to Isaiah Likely on 4th down. Lamar did his job in the 4th. Tyler Loop didn't do his. That simple. So I think this is kind of a good roundabout way of saying it's time to move on from Harbaugh. It is. It's been 18 years. Went to, I think, 4 AFC championship games. Won who knows how many AFC North titles. Won a Super Bowl back in 2012 with Ray Lewis, Joe Flacco, and that squad. Like, he'll go down, him, Brian Billick, 2 greatest coaches in Ravens, like, not very long history, but 2 greatest coaches in Ravens history. But it feels like that we've kind of reached the end of the road here. Like, can they get much further with the roster and the coaching staff as currently constituted? Whether you want to promote Todd Monken to be the head guy, by and large, hiring in-house, we see it in college football all the time. Like, the legendary coach goes to another program, they hire the new guy in-house, and it doesn't work. We saw this with Michigan with Sherrone Moore after Harbaugh, left to the NFL. Same thing usually applies to the NFL as well. Even with coordinators, we saw it happen with Detroit. We've seen it with Philadelphia. By and large, I'm not usually a fan of hiring in-house. I think you go out to outside sources. Kevin Stefanski, we're going to talk about him later on the show. He's on the market. Like, he's getting courted by multiple NFL teams that need a new head coach. He knows the AFC North well. Offensive coach. Could work with Lamar. I think it's time to move on if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan and the Baltimore Ravens organization. This is Lamar Jackson last night talking about how he's processing this loss for the Baltimore Ravens.
This offseason, there's a lot of questions about your contract, your salary cap number. Do you feel you'll be back as the Ravens quarterback next season?
We just lost a game, a divisional game, a game to put us in the playoffs. I'm not even thinking about that right now, to be honest with you. I'm still caught up in what just happened, That's not my focus right now.
Which I completely understand. I mean, you just lost a shocking game on the road that I'm sure you thought you were going to win. Especially after you make the play to Likely, it's going to be like that. That play was going to go on the Lamar Jackson highlight tape. Kind of not as epic. Remember when Aaron Rodgers, remember back 2013, he's with the Packers, 4th and a mile. He had just come back off of injury, kind of similar to Lamar. Regular season finale on the road, and he hits Randall Cobb for the bomb touchdown to win the division. Like that's kind of one of the plays we look at and like, oh, that's peak Aaron Rodgers. We would have said the same thing about Lamar Jackson had Tyler Luke made that kick from 44 yards out last night. We would have. He did his job. But it feels like we're just kind of on a treadmill to nowhere. Like what should the Ravens' expectations be in 2026 if they run it back? Derrick Henry's getting older. Clearly there is some fissures at the very least in the relationship between Lamar and Harbaugh. The fact that article came out when it did, the scathing article about, Lamar Jackson, somebody had to leak that to the Baltimore media. Doubt it was one of his teammates. Lamar's one of the most beloved, players in the league with his teammates. Ravens love Lamar. Is it a coach thing? Is it John Harbaugh having some irritation that you never know when he's going to be healthy because this happened back in 2021, 22, happened this year. Is Tyler Huntley going to have to play again? And then for Lamar, it's just kind of a frustration of, okay, we keep getting to, and we are falling short. So, and it looks like we've got a comment. Simpson O'Neill. Let me adjust this camera a little bit here. Here we go. If Lamar were to get traded, what teams would want him? Everybody except for the Chiefs, Bills, Patriots. That's it. Like anybody would take him. Listen, again, this is an all-world talent. We can knock him for the postseason. I have it linked on the show. I have. But from time to time, he's shown moments. I mean, last year in the second half, he had a brutal first half last year against the Bills and was fantastic in the second half. Game before that, he torched my Steelers. Last night, big game, do-or-die game, basically a playoff game. He was sensational, utterly sensational, almost a perfect passer rating in the fourth quarter. And something else, too, the only real, I guess, short-term and long-term concern I would have for Lamar, again, you can maybe attribute some of this to the injuries. He doesn't run anymore. Like, there are moments, a couple of times he used leg, but there's moments where a few years ago, like, oh, God, Lamar's going to break off the 20-yard scamper. And he'd get 5, 6, or throw the ball out of bounds. Like, is some of that attributed to the injuries? I know a few years ago, Lamar put on muscle. I think that's the year he won his second MVP, but he said he was slow. We kind of saw that in that championship game with the Chiefs. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for Lamar to get that back. Maybe some of it is, hey, he's 20. He's about to be 29 in a couple of days. He's not a young whippersnapper anymore. Like, maybe some of it's that, but I don't know. Athletes usually go into the prime of their career, 28, 29, 30, 31. That stage, that's right in the heart of where Lamar's at now. But I think the Ravens would be out of their minds to trade this guy. Because the thing is, like, it would be, honestly, it'd be worse than the Micah trade for Dallas. What would you get in return from Lamar? And I know the Ravens have a good front office. They draft pretty well. What would you get in return for Lamar that would lead you to believe we can get further than we got with Lamar Jackson in the time that he was here? Like, I think you're going to have to move on from one or the other. Lamar or Harbaugh. I think last night especially, I think it's pretty obvious that it's going to be Harbaugh. Simpson O'Neill. Or should I say what teams would trade him? What would they need to trade for him? I mean, we're talking at least 2 first-round picks, like 2 first, a second, like a good starter. I mean, this is a king's ransom that you would have to give up for a 2-time league MVP, top, in some people's eyes, top 3 quarterback. At this point, I'll have my quarterback rankings, later this week, but I would say probably he's dropped a little bit. This season can't help him, but he's still in that top 5. His track record is what it is. Last game of the year, he was excellent. So yeah, it will mean basically whatever the Packers had to give up for Micah, add like a second rounder and a better player than Kenny Clark. Let's put it that way. But it's just unbelievable on the part of Lamar Jackson keep Baltimore in that game with his arm, time and time again. Again, just show the fourth quarter numbers. Like he was awesome. Every time he got the ball in the fourth, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna get us again. Mama, there go that man. And fortunately, Tyler Loop let us off the hook. Multi-smartass one in the comments. I like the username. As a longtime Steelers fan, all I care about is that the Steelers make the playoffs. So thank goodness for what happened last night. Listen, I'm happy we made the playoffs too. Don't get me wrong. But we made the playoffs in 17 and 20 and 21 and 23 and 24. And this year, like we're on eight full seasons. Who knows what happens in year 9 of not winning a playoff game. And again, I've shown this graphic for like a year on this show, but this is how we started in all of our playoff games. Like we have got to get past that. It's not going to be easy. That's to say the very least. 3.5-point dog at home against a red hot Houston team. Although again, Houston, that defense hasn't looked invincible. At least it didn't yesterday against the Colts, against Riley Leonard making his first start. So we will take a break. How about 36 minutes to start the show on one game? Shout out, listen, I was one of those, and I'm a diehard Steelers fan, don't get me wrong, but I also love the NFL. I was one of those that said, I get Steelers-Ravens has a lot more history, to say the very least, than Seattle and San Francisco, but come on. Seattle, San Francisco's for the 1 seed in the NFC. And we'll talk about Seattle and San Francisco right after the break. NFL schedule makers, y'all did y'all thing. And Tarico and Collinsworth were sensational throughout the game. Excited to hear them do their first Super Bowl as a duo in a month. All right, we're going to take a 1-minute break on the show, but when we come back, again, it kind of got just swept under the rug because it was played on Saturday. It feels like a million years ago based on the weekend that we just saw. Man, Seattle's the scariest team in the NFC. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, we'll detail that. And also talk about Myles Garrett's sack record, the context behind that, the Drake Maye Stafford MVP debate. Kevin Stefanski lost the job for what? Get to that, of course, recap of Week 18. Just a loaded show. It's a Monday, playoff previews. Couldn't be more excited to be in studio today. Couldn't be more excited to have you guys watching and or listening. We'll be back in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Thanks to everybody for stopping by on this Monday. Just this is the best time of the NFL season. It's the best time of the NFL season. You get, or not the NFL season, the football season. You get college football playoff semifinal on Thursday and Friday. Obviously, we'll talk about that all week and predict the games on Wednesday, react to at least one of them on Friday. And then NFL playoffs. We've got a month straight of the best teams in the world going at it for the Super Bowl title. Like, I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more. And yes, the NFL schedule makers did indeed make the right move with Steelers-Ravens in primetime. No question about it. Let's talk about Seattle. Speaking of primetime games, let's talk about Seattle. 13-3 over the San Francisco 49ers wasn't exactly the most aesthetically pleasing primetime game that would decide not just the NFC West, but the number 1 seed in what is an absolutely loaded NFC. But it's exactly how the Seahawks would have wanted it. Because, I mean, you look at Sam Darnold's numbers, you're like, okay, 20 for 26, 198, 35 QBR, 97 ratings, not bad. But Sam Darnold basically played the role of game manager on Saturday night. Is that, and we'll talk about San Francisco and just the cluster of injuries that they've suffered, like to the point where it almost feels inevitable they go out in round 1 to Philadelphia, but we'll talk about that later. Seattle is utterly terrifying. When you contextualize, this Niners offense has been the best in the NFL for the last month. Really, since Brock Purdy came back into the lineup the last 6 games or so. We can show you the numbers. What they've done, what they did in the 6 games prior to Saturday night, and then what they did against Seattle. Show those numbers. It's stark. 19 total touchdowns in 6 games, 6 turnovers. The Niners were averaging 35 a game. Purdy had a 111 passer rating, and they were 6-0. Against the Seahawks, no touchdowns. Again, 3 points, a turnover. That was more McCaffrey's fault than Purdy's. A 64 rating for Brock Purdy in that game, and a loss. Just utter dominance. And I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times on this show all season long. Nobody's comparing the Seahawks defense to the Legion of Boom. Sherman, Bam Bam, Cam Chancellor, and Earl Thomas, and Bobby Wagner, and all these guys, Cliff Averill, Bruce Irvin. We remember the names. But what this defense, I think, has on that defense, which is one thing, speed. Just the second a Niner caught the ball on Saturday night, the second any player facing the Seattle Seahawks catches the passer, if they're running the football outside, I mean, those dudes fly, fitting that they're birds, Seahawks, fly to the football. In particular, guys, shout out to Nick Imamwari, who, folks that watched this show during our draft coverage last year, loved this kid out of South Carolina. Cannot believe he fell as low as he did to Seattle. Absolutely steal the draft, can play all the positions. He's really like a better version of what Jamal Adams was like 5 or 6 years ago, to be honest. Can play linebacker, can rush the quarterback, can play coverage. Like, he's awesome. But you've also got Devon Witherspoon. You've got Ernest Jones at linebacker. You picked up DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys. You brought in Leonard Williams. Like, all these guys, again, any coach in the NFL, this is why I've been so hard on Tomlin over the last few years. Your side of the ball, how good is it? Mike Macdonald's a defensive guy. Seattle probably has the best defensive football. It's either them or Houston at this point, the way they're playing as of late. What they just did to San Francisco on Saturday night, I think it's Seattle. Like, this team in many, many ways does remind you a little bit of that 2013 Seahawks team. Now, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are beast mode per se, but 180 rushing yards against San Francisco the other night, holding that explosive Niners offense that just put 42 on Chicago days before that to a field goal. That's impressive. That's impressive. And the fact that I stacked the NFC as the NFC is. I still buy the Rams wholeheartedly. Philadelphia is the defending champions. Chicago's good at winning the close games. For as loaded as the NFC is, man, the fact the rug goes through Lumen Field in the Pacific Northwest, like that's scary. It's ironic that the two Pacific Northwest football powers, Seattle Seahawks and the Oregon Ducks, don't they play football kind of the same way? Run the football, be kind of conservative unless you have to be. Like, that's the thing. This is not a Denver Broncos situation who they themselves got to clinch the 1 seed yesterday, where it's, God, Denver's just skating by bad teams, or they're skating by Trey Lance at home with the 1 seed on the line. Like, Seattle's shown, we can win shootouts. Oh, we just did it a couple weeks ago on a short week against the Rams, down 16. Was there some luck involved in like that 2-point conversion? Sure. But Puka Nacua had the best game of his career. Stafford had fire come out of his eyeballs. Defense wasn't special. And Darnold, despite a bad first 3.5 quarters, made the plays late when he had to. You've got a top 3 receiver in the game, Jackson Smith and Jigba. You've got the best gadget guy in the NFL in Rashid Shaheed, who y'all know I love when he was with the Saints. I think he's fantastic. You've got this defense, Clint Kubiak calling plays offensively for Darnold, work out the play action. Like, I think early on in that game, Mike Macdonald, Clint Kubiak understood, oh, okay, like our defense is giving their, like, second Purdy snaps the ball, we're getting pressure on him. Like, we can just kind of play this thing safe. You remember, I know they just got eliminated for the playoff recently. Remember Ohio State way back in week 1 against Texas in that season opening game? And it was like Bill's like the Arch Manning debut and whatever. And Arch kind of gets off to a rough start. He's missing some throws. And Ryan Day and the offensive coach staff at Ohio State's like, yeah, we're play this safe, play this kind of conservative, run the football. We're going to get some short fields, maybe take 1 or 2 shots, but that's really about it. Our defense is going to carry the day. That's what the Seahawks did on Saturday night, and that's what they're capable of doing in the playoffs. I mean, if you look at the NFC bracket right here, this is what we got. So it's almost certain that they're going to play a team that they're familiar with, either the Rams or the San Francisco 49ers. Again, they just beat San Francisco in their house. Should have beaten them back in week 1, if not for some bad mistakes by both sides of the ball for Seattle in the last minute of that football game. Or you get the LA Rams in a rematch of what was maybe the game of the year on Thursday Night Football. And that, I'll be completely honest with you, folks. I don't know who I'd pick in that game. Because obviously the Rams have the quarterback advantage. With respect to Mike Tomlin, they have the coach advantage. So generally speaking, like that's usually the team I go with in those situations. But the other side of that coin is, yeah, but if that defense is even slightly better than it was a few weeks ago, you feel differently. So, and kudos to Sam Darnold, man. Like this is a guy, again, far from special last night. It wasn't that good, to be honest, against the Carolina Panthers in week 17 on the road in Charlotte. But I said going into the week, outside of Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, and the only reason I said those two had the most pressure is because they were literally playing in a do-or-die game. Whoever lost that game was going home. Other than those two, no quarterback in football had even a smidgen of the pressure on them the way Sam Darnold did on Saturday night. Because this is a man who is in to a T, the exact same position this week as he was last year. Week 18, on the road, division on the line, 1 seed on the line. And last year, he laid an egg at Detroit. He was bad. And then in the playoff game against the Rams, O-line was a big cause of it. The O-line got absolutely worked by Jared Verse and Byron Young. He was terrible in that playoff game, though. Didn't have to be special. Made a couple of nice throws to Smith and Jigba and some of those tight ends. Rely on the run game. There's going to be moments in the divisional round, or if the Seahawks win beyond that, where Clint Kubiak and the Seahawks team is going to ask Sam Darnold, hey, put us on your back. Make a couple big time throws down the field. Lead us on some big time drives at the end of halves, or potentially at the end of the fourth quarter, or overtime potentially. Getting this monkey off his back, that's going to help him a ton. This was Sam Darnold after the Seahawks win over the Niners.
I feel like we didn't do exactly what we wanted to do as an offense in the red zone. I felt like there was a lot of opportunities missed there, but our defense picked us up. They have been all year. They've been doing a great job. So it was just a total team effort tonight. So proud of the guys in that locker room.
I know it sounds cliche. We hear coaches and quarterbacks say complimentary football. I'm like, oh boy, coach speak, cliche. Here we go. No team in the NFL plays that better than the Seahawks. For a long time, I thought it was the Rams, to where it's, gosh, Stafford and this offense, just a highly explosive team. The defense hasn't been that good for the Rams the last few weeks. They have not. And so, like, Seattle's taken that mantle from the Rams, as far as I'm concerned. They're a fitting winner of the NFC West and a fitting 1 seed. And so, God, this team's scary in the postseason, man. You do not want to run to Seattle. You'd much rather, with respect to the Bears, y'all know I love me some Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. You'll deal with the crappy weather in Chicago, or I'll be honest, you'd rather go to Philadelphia. With the way that offense is struggling, I know they're the defending champs. You'd rather go to Philly than to Seattle. Because the Seahawks offense has been better than Philly's offense as of late. Got some comments. Multi-Smart S1. Oh, interesting. I do guest NFL analysis on a radio show on the West Coast. I've been saying all season long that the Seahawks and Rams are the best teams in the NFC and the NFL. I can't even disagree with you. Again, I'll have Bryson's Best 10 on Wednesday shows. We always do every week. Those last 2 losses have to dock the Rams a little bit, but that said, there's a reason they're a double-digit road favorite in a playoff game against the Carolina Panthers this coming Saturday. Unless the Seahawks defense self-destructs or Sam Darnold suddenly goes cold, my assessment is that the Seahawks likely should make it to the NFC Championship. I do agree with that. And he also says Seattle is a textbook example of complementary football. They are. And again, it sounds cliche. It sounds, just like a word that coaches and quarterbacks and players throw out all the time, but it really is true. For the Niners, devastating. Completely devastating. The only path in my mind for this team to make any serious playoff run. Because also, even before the season, I wasn't a big buyer in San Francisco. Well, their schedule's easy. Well, as we saw, it wasn't as easy as we thought it would be, number one. Number two, this is a team that routinely, and I don't want to knock any men or women that I don't even know their names, the training staff in San Francisco. I don't know if it's a strength and conditioning problem. I don't know if it's a Shanahan. I don't know what the problem is. Like clockwork, this team falls apart physically. From the quarterback to the superstar first ballot Hall of Famer left tackle. To be fair, he is getting up there in age, but still not available for the biggest game of the year because he's not physically able to go. Kittle's been out. Jennings has been out. Pearsall was out again last night or Saturday night. Like the fact that McCaffrey, knock on wood, McCaffrey, God bless him. Hopefully he doesn't go down the postseason because he's been the one constant. Like again, If I had to vote for MVP, McCaffrey's somewhere in the top 5. He has to be. The man was the lifeblood for this Niners offense when the receivers were out. Kittle was gone. Ayuk, this is kind of an underrated story because the Niners were winning so much, but Ayuk didn't play a game and is almost certainly never going to play another down with the Niners ever again. Purdy's out of the lineup. Then you have to deal with Mac Jones, who Kyle Shanahan makes look like a competent quarterback. The defensive injuries, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. Like, the fact this team got to 12 wins is a credit to Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, and Robert Saleh. Kudos to those guys. But I even saw the news a few hours ago before the show that, the Niners lost one of their other defensive players, Bethune, I think, linebacker, lost him for the season. It's like, man, I said this about the Detroit Lions last year, and I love Detroit coming into the season a year ago. We hear the saying all the time, next man up. Well, eventually we're out of guys to bring up. I mean, that's just the reality. Like, the Niners are just running out of bodies. You heard Aikman on the broadcast about mid-fourth quarter, Seattle like a back-breaking third down conversion to keep a drive going. And Aikman said, man, this Niners team is just gassed. They're exhausted. And so now you go from 1C to, okay, we can get a week off. Road to the Super Bowl. Like, we don't have to leave our area code the rest of the playoffs because the Super Bowl's in Santa Clara. To, oh crap, we got to go to Philly's house on Sunday in cold weather. Against a great defense that's rested, by the way. Philly, oddly controversial. I don't really get this. Rested their starters. I guess people on the 2 seed. I understand that, but the way that offense has been playing, like, give them a breather, give them a week off, had them fresh and ready to go. Eagles starters got a week off last year, and look how that turned out for them in the playoffs. It's devastating for San Francisco. And y'all might think I'm going to come on this show and bash Brock Purdy. Listen. This is a guy I've said, and we may do more of a detailed breakdown if he plays poorly against Philly in that playoff game Sunday. But I've said for a couple of years in the show, and the numbers have backed it up. We've done numerous segments on it and carving it up. When trailing in the second half of games, Brock Purdy's not a good quarterback. Like, he's got more turnovers than he does touchdowns. Like, that's the cold hard facts of it. On the other side of that coin, we can't do analysis just based on box scores. And Purdy's is bad. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. We had a QBR 22, passer rating of 64. Like, it wasn't very good. But I got to be fair here. The second he's taking a snap, bam, here comes pressure from Seattle. Especially with that Trent Williams. You say, well, you expect him to step up when the moments are big. Or not when the moments are big, but when some guys are out. I get that. But I've seen the Seahawks defense over the last month, and they are almost unstoppable. Stafford was awesome, but Stafford's better than Brock Purdy. You wouldn't do this with Josh Allen. Josh Allen's better than Brock Purdy. Lamar Jackson, I'm going to hold those guys to a higher standard. With Purdy, it's, okay, you're being paid like a franchise upper-tier quarterback, top 10 level quarterback. About, I'd say, the Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff tier, Jordan Love tier. I wouldn't have expected them to be special on Saturday night. Not with the way that defense was playing. Now with the fact that San Francisco, what was the time possession in this game? I feel like Seattle had the ball the whole darn game. It was, what do we have? 37-22. What are we talking about? Now, Purdy plays bad next week. Different story. Because y'all know me as kind of the Purdy hater. Sounds a bit harsh and I think inaccurate. I would say skeptic, to say the very least. I'm not so sure there's much he could have done to win that game Saturday night against Seattle. Now, again, if he's bad against Philly, different energy. Because then that'll have been back-to-back must-win games for San Francisco that he bombed in. Got a comment. It's a fair point you raised. The playmakers got decimated on the 49ers. I don't talk to sources or reporters covering San Fran, so I don't know what has occurred with the physical issues in San Francisco. Whatever it is, I'll say this. It should not be so easily predictable. It should not be like, oh, yeah, of course they got hurt. Of course they lost all these guys due to injury. That should not be an expected. San Francisco is an older team with Kittle and Trent Williams. Bosa's still relatively young. So's Fred Warner, Purdy, Jawan Jennings. Pearsall's in his second year in the league. The man got shot last year and I think played more games in 2024 than this year. I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on. Shifting, though, to Cleveland, in which I'm sure this will be outside of the hiring of a new head coach in, a week or two. The last time we'd be talking about the Browns for a while. Thank God. Let's talk about the positive for Cleveland. Because yesterday, history was made. Myles Garrett, future first ballot Hall of Famer, no question about it, broke the all-time single-season sack record, once held by the great Michael Strahan and the great, my guy, TJ Watt. Both had 22 and a half sacks. Myles Garrett got sack number 23 yesterday. And listen, I don't think we appreciate, because the fact matters, when anytime some of these records have fallen or will fall in the future, it's going to be inevitable. Well, there's 17 games now, where there's used to be 16. In some cases, it used to be 12 if you go way back in the day, like around the merger era, 12, 14 games or so. With that being said, when you contextualize it into two things. Number one, guys who have 21 or more sacks over the course of an NFL season. This is the number of pass attempts that the other teams have had against that. Well, let's show the numbers. It's stark. So we'll go from the bottom up. 2021 TJ Watt, quarterback, where this is pass attempts, 563. Again, this is guys with 21 or more sacks. 563 for Watt in 2021. Chris Dolman, God rest his soul, 561 in 1989. Michael Strahan, his record-breaking season at 01, 545 pass attempts defended. Jared Allen, 2011, 538. Mark Gastineau, 1984, 521. 1987, Reggie White, one of the greatest pass rush seasons ever, because the man had, 21 and a half sacks or something like that in 12 games. He's a minister of defense. He's one of the greatest defensive players, if not the greatest ever. 511. James Houston, 2014, 488. Myles Garrett this year, 487 pass attempts that he faced when he was on the field with the Cleveland Browns. A large reason for that, and I guess these two things kind of correlate, it would be impressive if Myles Garrett had 23 sacks and he played for the Philadelphia Eagles, or he played for the Seahawks, or, Pittsburgh, or the Broncos, like whoever, a winning playoff team. Him doing this on a 5-win Browns team that 9 times this season trailed by double digits in the fourth quarter. So essentially what we're saying is, in the second half of these games, in the fourth quarter of these games, teams got a double-digit lead, they're sitting on it. They're running the football. So Myles Garrett's not getting the requisite number of opportunities that T.J. Watt got in 21, Strahan got in 01, Reggie White got in 87, Gastineau in 84. Like all of the great pass rush seasons in the history of the league, Jared Allen 2011, he hasn't gotten as many opportunities as them, and yet he got more sacks than they did. It's kind of like last year when Saquon Barkley could have broken Eric Dickerson's record, and he almost certainly would have done it. People say, well, he played more games. Yeah, on less rushing attempts. Like, we got to contextualize these things. How many opportunities did the player get to break the record, to make history? Like, Logan Ryan was on the call, was one of the gentlemen on the call yesterday for CBS. Shout out to Logan Ryan, former Patriots champion. And he made a great analogy I think is apt to use for Myles Garrett, that it's like a Barry Bonds situation, where in Barry Bonds' prime, the fact that he was hitting 50, 60, 70 home runs, you can say steroids all you want. How many opportunities was this guy getting? Barry Bonds would get walked with the bases loaded. There has never been a player in the history of the sport that generated more just terror in pitchers and in opposing managers than Barry Bonds. So the fact that his numbers are what they are, despite not getting, Barry Bonds, was it, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the pitcher's name. Was it Maddox? I forget. It was one of the all-time great pitchers mentioned something that Barry Bonds saw one good pitch a game. That's it. And he still put up the numbers that he did, because he's arguably the greatest. I think he's certainly the greatest power hitter ever. That's a different conversation for a different day. The point is, when you're making history with less opportunity to make history than the others, your contemporaries at your position, like again, and it's funny that I'm using this comparison. I've said for years on the show that Myles Garrett, I'm not saying he's as good as this player, to be clear. He's the closest thing we've seen to this player. Myles Garrett's the modern-day Reggie White. He absolutely is. Reggie White, if you watch his highlight tape, he would make grown men 320-pound linemen, or I guess it was a different time, 290, 300-pound linemen look like high schoolers. I mean, just maul them over. Like they were children. I mean, it was 1987, 12 games. I think it was 20. I'm pretty sure I'm getting this number right. 21 and a half sacks. Myles Garrett's season this year, not far off of that. Myles Garrett, you watch his highlight film. I'll never forget, there was a game a couple years ago against the Bengals where he had like he was like just screwing with the Cincinnati. We know how bad their offensive line has been. Fitting that he got the record against the Bengals. He's like doing an invisible, between the legs crossover with the basketball. He's just screwing around. Bull rush right up the gut, sacks Joe Burrow. Makes Pro Bowl tackles look pedestrian. Like that is the mark of a truly iconic athlete, is when they make their contemporaries look ordinary, look like just, to use the Bill Parcells phrase, Jack's just another guy, or just a guy, depending on how you phrase that. So congrats to Myles Garrett. This is, I'll be honest, even a Steelers fan who roots for TJ Watt for history's sake, I don't love that Cleveland Brown got it, but it was nice to see Myles Garrett make history. Good dude, consummate professional. I will say, and I did kind of rip him on the show during the offseason when initially he requested a trade, and then he ends up signing an extension. So it's like, oh, he used the trade request to get the extension. And then he releases, which I have no problem with. You get your money. But then he and his agent released a statement. Myles Garrett's focused on winning championships. Like, brother, you ain't winning championships in Cleveland. I hate to break that to you. Hey, you can be the all-time single-season sack record, and your team wins 5 games because the quarterback plays atrocious and the O-line's bad and the organization's incompetent. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But shout out to Myles Garrett for making history yesterday afternoon with the Cleveland Browns. And by the way, too, doing it in a big spot. I mean, this is a situation where Cleveland's leading, late fourth quarter, you sack Joe Burrow. The Bengals, Zach Taylor, the head coach, Jamar Chase, obviously superstar receiver on the team, were really salty after the game. I didn't think they'd stop the game. It's the all-time single season. Like, that's one of the most hallowed records, or one of the most celebrated records that we have in the NFL, single season sacks. I mean, think about the uproar when Favre gave himself up for Strahan, which I've always hated that for Strahan's sake, because it's like, yeah, I also got 21 sacks before that. Like, give me some credit for breaking this record. But it's I didn't love the salty nature of the Bengals. I didn't think they'd stop the game. What'd you expect? I get it's a big play coming up. I think it was third down coming up for Cincinnati, but still, this is history. This is going to go on Myles Garrett's Hall of Fame tape. Might be the first thing they show. If you didn't leave Cleveland, they aren't sure not going to show any playoff highlights. I can tell you that much right now. Part of the reason for that, for the Browns' perpetual incompetence, which as a Steelers fan, I truly bask in it each and every year. That is as frustrated as I can get with my own organization for their obsession with 9-8, 10-7, with just being good enough as opposed to getting to the next level in championship contention. You can always look down there at the division and say, at least you're not the Browns. It really could be worse. And if you're a Browns fan that understands your organization, and Browns fans, they know, you've got to be sick today. The Cleveland Browns have fired Kevin Stefanski. They did it earlier today. Jay Glazer reported yesterday on the Fox pregame show like it was likely to come. They were going to move on from Stefanski. He was almost certainly going to be given the boot. And that's exactly what transpired today. And, there's certain organizations in professional sports, in the NFL, it's two that come to mind immediately, where you have to be you have to be a Myles Garrett. You have to be a once-in-a-lifetime athlete to work there. The Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers, and I've gotten on Aaron for his decline in play and whatnot, and I think his legend, his stature has gotten a better rep than his play in recent years, to say the very least. Look how mid Aaron Rodgers looked with the Jets, and look how, I shouldn't say excellent, look how good he has looked in Pittsburgh, despite not a great O-line. Last night, a no-show of talent at wide receiver. Look at guys like, look at Robert Saleh flourishing as the defensive coordinator for the Niners. Look at a guy, and again, I think his resume is crazy overrated because of what he did in some ways before and after getting the greatest player in the history of the NFL with him. Look at Belichick, who the Browns decided to fire. Jets also had Belichick, and he left them, and we saw what happened after that in New England. For those that think Kevin Stefanski is the problem, I can show you the resume, but also he was working with a box of nothing at the quarterback position. Let's show that. So Kevin Stefanski is not a one-time coach of the year. He's a two-time coach of the year. Pretty good. He led the Browns to their first playoff appearance since 2002. He led the Browns to their first playoff when he did this back in 2020, by the way, against the Steelers in Cleveland, albeit he was on the sideline for that game, but got them to that point. The Browns won. First playoff win since 1994. And you see the quarterbacks he's had there. See if you've heard these distinguished quarterback names. Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, Nick Mullins, Bailey Zappi, Jeff Driscoll, P.J. Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Joe Flacco twice, Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. But I'm supposed to believe that he's the problem. The fact that the Cleveland Browns, usually a lot of times you'll see the quarterback and GM get fired. You'll see that from time to time. How Andrew Berry still employs the GM of this team. See, folks may not know. Andrew Berry, GM of the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, now former coach of the Browns, they came in the same year in Cleveland. They were hired for their respective positions, same year, 2020. Kevin Stefanski didn't give Deshaun Watson the single worst contract in the history of the NFL and maybe in the history of sports. Kevin Stefanski wasn't the guy who said, yeah, Baker, we can do better. Let's go with Deshaun. GM made that call. And you say, well, Stefanski, he hated Shedeur. I don't know, man. You think a two-time coach of the year who's been starved for good quarterback play is going to screw a kid over? Really? Again, I like Shedeur. I do. I think he has the ability to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But this idea, they're sabotaging him. If not for crappy coaching, he could be a top 10 quarterback. By what metric? His arm is fine. He moves okay. You'd think he would be a little more athletic, being the son of one of the greatest athletes ever, Deion Sanders. He's accurate. I'll give him that. He's worked with bad O-lines, but this year he had more turnovers than touchdowns. And Dylan Gabriel was even worse. Andrew Berry made that call. And Stefanski's the problem. This is what happens. The ultimate mark of how successful somebody is or how valuable somebody is to a team, to a company, to anything. What is said, collection, what is said group once that person leaves? Did you see the tweet from Adam Schefter a few hours ago? If you didn't, no worries. We'll go ahead and show it on the screen for you. Former Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski currently is expected to speak with the Falcons, Giants, and Titans about their head coach vacancies. In fact, when Schefter reported the news that Stefanski got the boot from Cleveland, he said, Stefanski is expected to be one of the top head coaching candidates in the cycle. So, in other words, other teams are desperately trying to bring him in. You listen, sometimes you got to look in the mirror as a franchise. You're the Cleveland Browns. You just had a guy have arguably the greatest pass rush season in the 107-year history of the NFL. And you won 5 football games. You play in a division. Baltimore's way better run than you are. Pittsburgh, way better run than you are. But the coach is the problem, right? How many coaches you've had in your history? Is it 30, 35, somewhere in that ballpark? I mean, I saw a stat today that Kevin Stefanski coached 101 games with the Browns, which is the longest of any Browns coach since the 60s. In other words, not only do you make bad head coach hirings, but maybe it did make a good head coach hiring you just to give them an opportunity to build their culture. Kevin Stefanski, again, in a division with the Steelers and Ravens, and with Cincinnati getting Joe Burrow, got to the playoffs twice, won a playoff game in Pittsburgh. They were 2 years removed. 2 years ago, he's having to try out Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Who are these guys? We know who Deshaun is for unfortunate reasons. The man has to sign Joe Flacco off the couch, 38-year-old Flacco. And there's a moment in time, I remember talking about on my show 2 years ago, could the Browns be a playoff threat with Joe Flacco at quarterback? That's what Kevin Stefanski did. Yet the GM doesn't get the boot for these atrocious draft picks. And Cleveland had a decent draft this. Mason Graham was excellent. He's going to be a star in this league, but we expected that from him. Dylan Sampson, that's my guy from Tennessee. I'm hoping he pans out. But you draft one very low upside quarterback in the case of Dylan Gabriel, one whose upside is he, at best case scenario, is probably a starting level quarterback, but not much more than that. So I cannot believe that the Haslam family, who, listen, I live in Tennessee. We know the Haslams don't exactly do business and sports particularly well. I'm shocked that they gave Andrew Berry another year. Shocked. He and Stefanski came in the exact same year. And the guy who's gotten the playoffs twice got to the playoffs in 2020 for the first time since 2002. Won you your first playoff game in, 28 years? Or my bad, 26 years? Okay. Let's see how track the job Cleveland is. Because I know, again, put up the tweet one more time. I know Stefanski is being courted immediately. It's like, it's not to this level quite, but remember when Andy Reid got fired by Philly, and those were different circumstances. His voice had run hollow in Philly. It had run its course, kind of similar to John Harbaugh in Baltimore, and in my opinion, Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. Different circumstances. And again, all three of the Eagles, Ravens, Steelers, well-run organizations. Remember when Andy Reid was on the market, 2013, and the Chiefs had him 48 hours. I mean, it felt like 48 hours later. The next day, Andy Reid's going to be the head coach of the Chiefs. Does it feel like we're waiting for the notification Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the latest? Kevin Stefanski becomes the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Feels kind of inevitable, doesn't it? As soon as he's fired, 3 teams call him. Says a lot. So, careful what you wish for, Browns, because that guy wasn't the problem. Your GM isn't very good. Your ownership is second worst in the league. Woody Johnson's worst. Second worst in the league. And you still happen to be in a division with the well-run Steelers, well-run Ravens, and the Bengals, for all their faults, at least for now, still have Joe Burrow. If they don't, then yeah, they'll be in the gutter with you the way that the AFC North was designed to be. That was, I don't know if the Browns were listening to trolls on the internet who somehow think that a guy who's been starved for great quarterback play finally was going to sabotage a kid if he really was the savior of the franchise. It's insane. It's utterly insane on the part of the Cleveland Browns. Patrick Brown's in the comments. Befitting that Myles Garrett finishes with 23 sacks, sign an endorsement deal with Jordan Brand. There you go, the 23. I hate, in the case of Myles Garrett, I hate seeing great all-time Hall of Fame athletes play in games that mean absolutely nothing. Playing games for teams that are probably trying to lose. We saw this with Calvin Johnson for years in Detroit. Barry Sanders for years in Detroit before they became a well-run franchise. It sucks. So, and yeah, of course I want to see Myles Garrett. By the way, one more thing on Stefanski, something else too. And, we had to hear about this last week as Steelers fans. Kevin Stefanski's beaten the Steelers 4 straight times at home. Feels like having the Steelers been the gold standard or one of the gold standards, certainly of the AFC, if not all professional football. Recent years, I've questioned what is the standard. Browns have beaten them 4 straight times in Cleveland. Beat them last week with the Steelers having everything in the world to play for and the Browns having nothing to play for. Wouldn't a team with a bad coach have quit their coach at that point? Just saying. Careful what you wish for, Browns, because this is going to come back and bite you. And frankly, listen, I'm thrilled the Steelers are in the playoffs, but if they are to lose to Houston, because I did not think Tomlin coached a very good game last night. He hasn't all season. The Steelers' defense is ranked 26th. If Stefanski ends up getting hired before the Steelers do play against Houston, if they lose and Tomlin decides to walk away and go to TV, as Ian Rappaport, Schefter, and others are reporting, it's like, gosh darn it, man. That's offensive guy, made it work with the Browns. Sure, he's going to work in Pittsburgh. Has an opportunity. Hopefully a young quarterback comes in, can develop him. So that part's kind of a bummer, but we'll see how it happens. Interesting. Doug Clawson just tweeted this. Doug Clawson, if you don't follow him on X, I highly recommend. Great statistician. He just tweeted this. There were 0 repeat division winners in the AFC for the first time since 2003. So, listen, it's part of why the AFC feels so wide open. So, very, very excited for the playoffs. We're going to take a break? Okay, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, the Drake Maye, Matthew Stafford debate. Again, I did this segment on Friday. We're going to do sort of like a final edition of it because both Stafford and Maye played another game. We'll get to that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back on Carving It Up. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Thanks to everybody for stopping by on a jam-packed Monday show. Before we get to Drake Maye versus Matthew Stafford MVP debate, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Again, we got Carving It Up merchandise, which you can scan the QR code right there. Check it out. I was scanning the website yesterday, scanning the merch page yesterday after the Steelers game. Or I guess that would have been in the wee hours of the morning. And, of course, we've got hats, T-shirts, hoodies. I got a Carving Up hoodie. Very, very comfortable. Highly recommend. You get one of those coffee mugs, the whole bit. I saw freaking jogging shorts. I mean, we've got everything. You want teddy bear, plush toys. We got that. We got beach hats to protect yourself from the sun this summer. Like, if you want to get a head start on that, like, we've got all kinds of stuff on the Carving It Up merch site. So definitely scan that QR code right there, right in that top left corner. Check it out because we got fantastic merch to rep Carving It Up. We would really, really appreciate it. Now, as far as the MVP debate, which I'm sure it's getting heated up for the next few weeks, but the fact of the matter is both guys cannot do anything to hurt or help their cause. The playoffs will be what they are, but obviously, as we know, much to my chagrin, professional sports MVPs are the postseason does not factor into that. I think they should, but they don't. So it's done. Stafford's done. Maye's done. NFL regular season is concluded. Let's just do it like we did last week. Let's do Carving Up the Context on a Monday. As the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." This week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to do basically a redo of what we did on Friday's show, but again, with new information, with new data. So, listen, here's what I will say before I get to anything about the Matthew Stafford Drake Maye case for MVP. I will have no problem with either guy winning. Anybody that acts like it's just obvious in one direction or the other are lying to themselves. Because we're going to show some pro Drake Maye graphics, but then show after that why I believe Matthew Stafford should be league MVP. And by the way, none of it which involves, shout out to Tom Brady. I love Tom. And some of these veteran quarterbacks, if they're like, Stafford's never got one, he should win it. Like, guys, this isn't a lifetime achievement award. Like, who's the MVP of the league? So just on raw numbers, tail the tape. Maye's got him beating all the major statistical categories, right? Like, obviously, Stafford's got far more total touchdowns, 46-35, but Maye's got him beating total yards per game, completion percentage, passer rating, QBR, record. Like, just on the raw box score, look at their ESPN or their Football Reference page statistics, Maye beat Stafford pretty comfortably. And frankly, another stat that a lot of pro Drake Maye people have used is against common opponents, which, if I remember correctly, is the Ravens, the Buccaneers, and I think the entire AFC South, if I remember, or NFC South, rather. Sorry. Ravens, Titans, and the NFC South. this is what the numbers look like. And again, it favors Drake Maye. So Maye has fewer same amount of touchdowns, but fewer turnovers. Yards per game, Maye. Completion percentage, rating, QBR, record, Drake Maye. Now, the numbers for Stafford aren't bad, but Drake Maye's are objectively better. So that's the pro-Drake Maye argument. Here's what I would say, and this is why it's carving up the context. We dig even deeper. We dig even a little further below the surface. The schedule has to matter. And again, before Patriots are like, yeah, you're using the schedule against us. For MVP, if it's that close, that does have to be a tiebreaker, and I'll show you exactly why it's that close. Against playoff teams, the Patriots played 3. The Los Angeles Rams played, I think, was it 6? Six, 7. The numbers are stark. And again, the per-game numbers. Yards per game, Stafford. Completion goes to Maye. Pass rating by a mile goes to Stafford. QBR, Stafford. Record, Stafford. I mean, now that the Steelers are in the playoffs, they're a playoff team, and, Drake Maye lost to one of them. So, that's got to matter. 1-2 record, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Stafford, 20-1 touchdown interception ratio. So, essentially, when the lights are the brightest, I'm not saying Drake Maye's some choke artist. We haven't seen the playoffs yet. I think Drake Maye's going to ball out in the playoffs. I do. But under the bright lights, when you are not just expected to win, but also in a situation where you got to get these games in order to put yourself in position to get as good of a seeding as you can in your conference. Which, by the way, the NFC, don't we all agree, way better conference than the AFC? Stafford had to play in by far the best division in football. Seattle twice, he torched them both times. The Rams twice, he torched them the second time in San Francisco. People say, he's stacking his numbers yesterday against the Cardinals. A, the Rams needed that game to get to the 5 seed and get to go to Carolina instead of having to go to Philly. And B, have you seen the AFC East? It's not exactly a bunch of world beats. The Jets, the worst team in football. Yeah, they're worse than the Raiders. I've watched the Jets. They're unwatchable. The Dolphins aren't exactly a world beater, and the Buffalo Bills have some holes in their defense. Meanwhile, the Seahawks are a legit Super Bowl threat. The Niners, if healthy, even if they're not right now, Super Bowl threat. The NFC is a conference, far better than the AFC. And it's not just that. And this, to me, is the kind of back-breaking stat for Drake Maye in favor of Stafford. There's a couple, I guess. When we talk about the schedule, people are like, you're holding against the Patriots. Not only, this is remarkable, not only did the Rams quite literally play the hardest strength of schedule in the whole NFL, and the Patriots played the easiest. Literally, Rams are number 1 in strength schedule. Patriots are 32nd. You thought the Patriots' your schedule was easy this year. If you go back to the merger, anytime you hear since the merger, it's usually a pretty wild stat. So 1970, so 56 years of NFL football since the NFL-AFL merger. The Patriots have, and we'll show you, the 8th easiest schedule in NFL history. And what do you see as the common thread of all of those teams? All of them were good. It's like, if you get a historically easy schedule, you're good. Now, by the way, if you look at some of those teams, 99 Rams, 72 Dolphins, which are an iconic team, they won the Super Bowl. The 1975 Vikings. Did the Vikings make the Super Bowl in 75? I can't remember. I know Tarkenton actually did win the MVP. Kurt Warner won league MVP in 1999. Rams made the Super Bowl in 1979. The Patriots, only time will tell. But the moral of the story, 8 easiest schedules since the merger. This is not best records against the easy schedule. This is just straight up. 8 easiest schedules in the NFL since the 1970 merger. Only 7 teams have had it easier than the Patriots. Now, that's obviously, as you saw by that graphic, not a death knell either. A, for the Super Bowl, Rams and Dolphins, 99 Rams, 72 Dolphins, won championships, but not even for MVP. Fran Tarkenton, 1975, won league MVP. Kurt Warner, 1999, won league MVP. So it's not a disqualifying stat, but it would be one thing if the Rams had like the 10th hardest schedule, the Patriots had like the 21st. It's like, okay, the Rams will play better schedule, but it's like, we're kind of, splitting hairs here. Not only is it 1 in 32, it's 1 in 32 with one of the easiest schedules in NFL history. The final stat. cumulatively speaking, I've always struggled to say that word for some reason. Matt Stafford and the Rams face the third best pass defense in the entire NFL. Drake Maye and the Patriots cumulatively face the worst defense in the NFL, pass defense in the NFL. Again, we've got the graphic. Here you go. Cumulative pass defenses face, Stafford's third, Maye's 32nd. I can't knock the kid for playing the schedule he played. This is not in any way to say, oh, Drake Maye's a fraud who's just feasting off of bad teams. That's not the case. Eye test matters. You see it with him. You see the accuracy. You see what he can make, all the throws he can make in and out of the pocket. I've said multiple times, it doesn't look hard for this kid. He's going to be a superstar in the league if he isn't already. But degree of difficulty? Infinitely more difficult schedule against better teams, better defenses, far better defenses this year in the tougher conference. To me, it should be Stafford. Now, again, as I said at the top of this segment, if it goes to Drake Maye, I have no problem with that. None. But anybody who's pro Maye or pro Stafford that thinks it's their guy and it's not close are lying to themselves, are not looking below the surface, are not looking at some of the deeper numbers that we just showed you on this show. So in this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, again, if it goes to Drake Maye, if he wins MVP, I'll have no problem with it. And anybody making the argument for Stafford, well, Maye will have future opportunities to win MVP. A, you don't know that. B, even if he does, yeah, but was he the best player this year? Again, this is not a lifetime achievement award. That said, I do think Stafford's been better. Slightly, but I think he's been better. All right, let's move to a Week 18 recap. And then after that, we'll go into previewing some of the playoff matchups. I won't predict them until Friday's show. So Week 18 recap around the National Football League. So first of all, Texans beating the Colts. Texans, by virtue of the W, clinch the number 5 seed. So they obviously will be going to Pittsburgh next Monday night to take on the Steelers. Listen, they took C.J. Stroud out at halftime, put Davis Mills in because the Texans were still playing for the AFC South, but they look up the scoreboard. They see Jacksonville, more on Jacksonville later, was just annihilating Tennessee. It's like, okay, let's not get C.J. hurt. Let's get our starters out. That being said, and listen, Steichen's a smart offensive coach. I don't know to give the credit to Steichen or to Riley Leonard or to say, Texas defense just didn't bring their A game. Whatever the case may be. Riley Leonard looked pretty good. For his first start in the NFL at Houston with a team playing for a lot, not bad. 21-34. The fact they trust him to throw it 34 times, is a kudos to them. 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. The pick, again, had the turnover late for the big fella touchdown. QBR 0 to 100 of 83, which is excellent, and a passer of 94. So, kid played well. And the Colts opened up. They had the fake punt, and then they kept the special teams unit out, which was wild for the next play. They threw caution to the wind. They obviously weren't playing for anything. Seeing Phillip Rivers on the sideline for the final time as a player, they were talking Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt. Phillip Rivers was suggesting he might be in the coaching cycle this year, which would be wild stuff. But Riley Leonard played well, and I liked him out of the draft under Notre Dame as a mid-round pick. Maybe I'll be wrong on Will Howard. I don't know. But I wanted the Steelers to take him instead of Will Howard in last year's draft as a kind of developmental guy. But he showed promise. So for Indianapolis, the toughest thing for the Colts, and we said it on the spot in the show, that the video is actually on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. Trading for Sauce Gardner was a highly irresponsible move. I get it. Go for it. Be aggressive. I'm all for that. I have been on the show for years. But 2 first-round picks for a player whose name is better than his game, and for a team that was playing a harder schedule second half, and once they did, they fell apart. Point blank, they did. They were bad. They were one of the worst teams in football the second half of the season. So, tough for the Colts. As for Houston, we'll see what they do against Pittsburgh. Again, I'll predict some of those matchups later. Giants over the Cowboys, 34-17. Giants fans are pissed. Shout out to my sister. She works with a Giants fan. He was not happy about it. He's like, most Giants fans. Could have gotten the number 1 overall pick if we just lost our last 2 games, and we won both of them. It's one thing to beat the Raiders, another thing to beat Dallas, albeit the Cowboys sat Dak. More on that in just a moment. But we go from where are the Giants at in the draft? Or 7th, I think. Where are they at? Yeah, 5th. I'm sorry, 5th. But still, any chance for the Giants to possibly have because there were rumors that they might actually trade Jackson Dart and draft Fernando Mendoza if they evaluate Mendoza as the better player, kind of similar to what the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray, although Dart was better than Josh Rosen. But if they like the quarterback prospect better, they'll go with him, and Dart is a more, aggressive player, but reckless player, probably be the better phraseology. You can't do this if you're New York. I get Mike Kafka as the interim coach. Guys play hard for the interim head coach. As I say, substitute teacher theory in the NFL, that can't happen. As for Dallas, so I will say, I hate that the Dak Prescott Giants win streak is officially over, because this does go as a loss on, because he started the game, Joe Milton finished it, but it goes as a loss on Dak Prescott's resume. So I guess from now on, I'll have to rephrase it as, games in which Dak Prescott starts and finishes, he has not lost to the Giants since 2017. But on that note, just to put a bow on the Cowboys season, and we'll play a Dak Prescott soundbite that is very telling. Dak this season, the best year of Dak's career, I still think, was 2 years ago, when he had, aside from CeeDee Lamb, a mediocre on its best day receiving core. Like, not as bad as what Pittsburgh had last night, but not much better. A mid-run game. O-line was fine. Defense was okay. Head coach, a lot of Mike McCarthy defenders out there in a brutal division. And he almost won league MVP. Led the league in touchdown passes, second in passer rating, top 5 in QBR, like all the major, best touchdown to interception ratio. Dak was awesome in 2023. This would probably be a second best year, because he had to carry a team with a god-awful defense. So show Dak's numbers of the course of the season. He was, by any metric, he was one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks. 4th in pass touchdowns, 11th in completion, 3rd in pass yards per game, 8th in passer rating, 4th in QBR. Dak was sensational. And the Cowboys defense, by sheer ego, by sheer hubris of their owner, Jerry Jones, in trading Micah Parsons, was probably the worst defense in the league. That's his 30th. It should say 31st, but last in points per game allowed, 31st in yards per game allowed, 31st in yards per play allowed, last in pass yards per game allowed, 31st in pass touchdowns allowed, 31st in passer rating allowed, 23rd in rush yards per game allowed. Remember, trading Micah Parsons, and by the way, bringing in Kenny Clark and Quentin Williams, that's going to fix our rushing defense. Yeah, you were 23rd. And dead last in the NFL were the Dallas Cowboys on 4th down. So if you were, or on 3rd down rather, so if you were 3rd down against the Cowboys defense, you got it about half the time, which is atrocious, 47%. Let's play the Dak bite, because this was, this seemed to be a clear shot at the front office, and Dak never does that. Let's play what Dak Prescott said after the game against the Giants yesterday about the Cowboys season.
Obviously, this is not the end of what we want, not so much today, but overall, how can you sum up your season overall?
Tough season. Frustrating in the sense, I think I've alliterated this before. One of the first seasons, if not the first, in my career, right? I can't directly correlate my play to the wins, the loss, or the end of the season, or overall success of the season. So that makes it frustrating.
Okay. So blatant shot at the defense. And I don't think it's a shot at the defense as much as it is. Gosh darn it, Jerry. Like, if we had a pulse on that side of the ball, and Eberflus deserves blame. How Eberflus has not been fired yet is beyond me, but this is Jerry, right? He waits. He is the least proactive owner in professional sports when it comes to contracts, coach hires. Remember, he could have moved on, and Schottenheimer did a fine job. His red zone play calling left some things to be desired. By and large, Schottenheimer has been a solid move thus far. But he's a better play caller than McCarthy, I'll say that. But Ben Johnson was on the market. And by waiting to fire Mike McCarthy, you didn't get the opportunity to interview Ben Johnson. So you had to hire in-house. And so that, but more so, you've got, I don't know, one of the 5 best players in the sport on the defensive side of the football, and you moved them for some picks that you will probably bomb. Let's be honest. Dallas, and they gave up one of those picks to get Quentin Williams, who's a very good player. Quentin Williams not be the difference in you being a Super Bowl team and being 7-8 or 7-9-1 or whatever you were. If you look at Jerry's recent draft history, first round picks haven't been that good. So he's got 2. I don't know. Maybe he's prone to hit on one of them. Caleb Downs in this draft, It's a good offensive lineman draft. Dak could use upgrade the offensive line. Dallas was good run blocking, but pass blocking, they were one of the worst in the league. But Dak's saying that, it's like, yeah, in other words, I really have no regrets about how I played this year. It just sucks that it didn't equate to wins, which is basically saying, guys, we couldn't get a stop. We could not stop a nosebleed, in large part because we had one of the best pass rushers in the sport who can get our defense off the field on third down and can get after the quarterback and can, when we're playing with the lead, tee off number 11. But what do I know, right? That trade's worked really well for Jerry. Already talked Browns and Bengals. Saints and Falcons, the game that, because of Saturday, which I guess we didn't talk Panthers-Bucks, Bucks beat the Panthers 16-14. It was a very poorly officiated game, I'll say that. And the play calling was bad on both sides. It was a mess. It was a monsoon in Florida. I knew the monsoon was bad. Again, I lived in Florida last year for 4 months. Florida rain comes hard for about 15 minutes, and then it goes back to being sunny. The fact that it wasn't that way in Tampa on Saturday said a lot. But by virtue of Tampa winning, they needed a New Orleans Saints victory, and they didn't get it. Although New Orleans did cover. Thank you very much, Tyler Shuck, for that late touchdown and a great one-handed catch at the end. But Atlanta wins. Atlanta fired Raheem Morris after the game. Actually, they didn't even wait till today. Today's Black Monday in the NFL, where coaches get fired by and large. Them moving on from Raheem Morris, they didn't give the man a chance to sleep and come into the office the next day. They weren't wasting any time. But listen, 2 years there, what was he? Let me get the record. I think it was 13 and 16 or something like that. The Falcons, 16 and 18. The Falcons' worst since 2024. I mean, this team underachieved. They gave Kirk Cousins a lot of money. They drafted Penix. I was a big Michael Penix Jr. fan out of college. He still might pan out. Thus far, it hasn't really worked. It's been one of the most talented teams in the league. You got Bijan Robinson, who quietly had one of the better seasons in the last decade for a running back, and nothing to show for it. Even the worst division of football, nothing to show for it. So I get the change. But let's be honest, by and large, Mike McDonald's kind of the exception. Defensive, and Vrabel, I guess. Defensive coaches, the league's kind of passed them by. My guy Colin Cowherd's been on this for years. It's an offensive league, it's a creative league, it's an innovative league, and defensive guys are kind of left in the dust by and large, unless they have a successful and smart OC, which Vrabel's got in Josh McDaniels, Mike McDonald's got in Clint Kubiak. Atlanta didn't have that, and that's where they kind of fell apart. The Vikings beat the Packers 16-3. Green Bay rested their starters because they're already locked into 7, which was a smart move. They'll play Chicago on Saturday. Jacksonville. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day. Of course, it goes without saying that I'm rooting first and foremost for my Pittsburgh Steelers in this year's NFL postseason. But should they get knocked out, and I think it's fair to say that there's not one single solitary Steelers fan on this earth that thinks the Steelers are going to win the Super Bowl. So should that come to pass, or should they go out early in the playoffs, my allegiance is squarely behind one team, and in particular, one quarterback, and Mr. Trevor Lawrence. With the AFC South on the line, can we show what Trevor Lawrence did against the Tennessee Titans? You're like, it's Titans, right? 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 73% completion. That's pretty good. 255 passing yards, a 131.9 passer rating, QBR from 0 to 100 of 82. Those are good numbers. But as I said last week and the week before that, since we enjoyed our delicious Thanksgiving Day turkeys, think about it, we're in 2026 now. Think about how long ago Thanksgiving was and the craziness of the holiday season. From Thanksgiving Day on, or Thanksgiving weekend on, you cannot find a quarterback, not Drake Maye, not Matthew Stafford, not Josh Allen, you name it. Your favorite quarterback has not been better than Trevor Lawrence, and we can show you those numbers. Here you go. Last 5, actually, I should say the last 7 games. Last 7 games, he has 22 total touchdowns, leads the NFL. He has 1 pick, last in the NFL. Second in the NFL in total yards per game, second to Stafford. Second to Drake Maye in passer rating. First in QBR in that stretch. The Jags are second in terms of points per game to the Rams, 34.5 points per game. And they, of course, have a 6-0 record. So, yeah, that should say the last 6 games. Regardless, last month and a half, he's been the best player in the league at his position. is that when you get a generational all-time quarterback talent with the crazy arm, the mobility, the size, the aura, the leadership. I mean, you saw in the locker room. If you haven't seen the video, look it up, man. Where they give, I think it'd been a meme in Jacksonville or something, where they give Trevor Lawrence the grills after they clinch the AFC South. Like, the locker room loves him. He did, they did the commercial with Travis Hunter. If you list AFC contenders and the Jaguars are not listed amongst one of the first one or two teams you mentioned, you just have not watched the NFL this year. It's that simple. The defense is insane. We're going to talk about their match with Buffalo in just a second. We'll give the final prediction on Friday. That pass rush with Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, like, that's terrifying. You look at the opposite side of the ball, Parker Washington got, dinged up yesterday. Hopefully he's going to be fine. Parker Washington, Brian Thomas Jr. You've got Jacoby Myers, Travis Etienne running the football, Liam Cohen, who, listen, I've said all year, if they split the coach of the year in half between Vrabel and Ben Johnson, I'll have no problem with it. But can Liam Cohen at least get the side dish part of that coach of the year? The Jags went from 4-13 to 13-4. So give Liam Cohen credit. But I've said it for years on Carving It Up Live. When this kid has been healthy, he's been excellent. 2022, first healthy season with a legitimate NFL coaching staff, because the Urban Meyer year was a joke. Urban's a college legend. It was a joke in the NFL. Year 2 in 2022, he takes the Jags from 4-8 to 9-8. They win the AFC South. Down 27-0, he pulls off one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the NFL playoffs. And for what it's worth, did give Kansas City, the eventual champion Chiefs, a run for their money at Arrowhead the next round. 2023, he comes back, playing just as well, if not better. The Jags, entering the month of December, were the number 1 seed in the AFC. He gets hurt in a Monday Night Football game. I think it was against Cincinnati, if I remember correctly. Not the same player the rest of the year. Last year, not going to hide from it. He was not good last year. Injuries dinged him up, but even before that, he wasn't good. But this year, with a smart coaching staff, not even with all of his weapons. Brian Thomas Jr. has been out of the lineup. Travis Hunter hasn't played in 2-3 months. You're making Parker Washington work. They traded for Jacoby Myers from the Raiders. And he's been, again, the best quarterback in the National Football League in that stretch. So to all you Trevor Lawrence haters, to all you out there, it's we only care about Trevor because of the hair, the great college resume back at Clemson. But what has he really done in the NFL? He's shown you what he's done in the NFL. And that is, when he's healthy, he's an elite player. And Jacksonville is absolutely terrifying going into the postseason. And we'll talk about their match with Buffalo in just a moment. What else did we have? Rams with the Cardinals. We already talked about Stafford. He and Puka Nacua lit up the Cardinals. Broncos over the Chargers 19-3. They covered. I did have the Chargers plus 12.5. I mean, what are we doing? This is insane. Denver's only touchdown this game came on a pick six off Trey Lance. They struggled to blow out Trey Lance and the LA Chargers, who were sitting everybody. Everybody of note. Keenan Allen played a little bit to get some incentives, but that's basically it. I've said it a million times, the show, I'll say it again. This is the single most fraudulent number 1 seed since the Tennessee Titans in 2021. Where we look at them, we're like, they had the best record, but do we really think they're going to go on a deep playoff run? I mean, let's be honest. Denver's got a great home field advantage. We know that. But we just saw, speaking of Trevor Lawrence, we just saw him go to Denver a couple weeks ago and light the defense on fire for Denver. Bo Nix, you see him yesterday? How he look good? So I'm calling my shot now. They're going home in round 1. If they run into, I guess they can't run into Jacksonville. If they run into Buffalo, the Texans, heck. If they run into my Steelers, hot dog, we're going to the AFC Championship game. Because that team ain't legit. They beat the Jets by 2 points earlier this year. It took an all-time comeback to beat the Giants. They struggled to pull away from the Trey Lance Chargers. They barely beat the Chris Oludekan Chiefs. What are we doing? So, fraudulent. Speaking of AFC West, Raiders of the Chiefs 14-12. Kansas City, if my math serves me correctly, let me do this real quick. Let's see. 12, 13. Okay. In 3 games without Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs averaged 11 points a game. So by no means did Patrick have a great year, but for anybody acting like he was somehow the issue in Kansas City, an older Travis Kelce, a bad O-line, a non-existent running game. And he still had his moments from time to time. He was great against Dallas, great in the fourth quarter against the Colts, good in spots against a great Jags defense. Like, Mahomes is not perfect, but far from the problem with the Chiefs this year. And as for Kelce, it could be the final game he ever plays in his career. So sure, he'll make decisions with the family, obviously with Taylor and with Jason Kelce and Mama Kelce. Like, they'll all discuss it. But if this is it, he goes out as, I think, indisputably one of the 5 greatest tight ends of all time. And he can make a strong case he's on the Mount Rushmore of tight ends. So there you go. Patriots blew out the Dolphins. Ramondre Stevenson had a couple of long runs for touchdowns. Commanders beat Philly 24-17. The Philadelphia Eagles rest everybody. Josh Johnson, kudos to him. First touchdown for him since 2021. And Washington wins that game. Philly is the 3 seed. Lions of the Bears. It's sad, man. It's the last time we're going to get to do this until, I guess, September of 2026. But when it was all said and done, Bears had something to play for. Lions did not. Lions did this a very similar thing in 2022. This is when I fell in love with Dan Campbell and the whole culture in Detroit. Is Lions had nothing to play for. In fact, they knew they were eliminated a half hour before the game started against Green Bay, and they still retired Aaron Rodgers as a Packer. So the players came out and showed up. Had nothing to play for in Chicago, but the motivation of wanting to beat Ben Johnson for the second time in a row. Dan Campbell and your beloved Detroit Lions for the final time in 2025. What did y'all do this season?
Kneecap.
Let me do that. Let me redo that. What did you guys do in this game against the Chicago Bears?
Kneecap.
Kneecaps were indeed bitten. Listen, Lions blew a 16-0 lead. Caleb Williams, again, made some clutch plays. Colson Loveland was sensational. Goff threw a bad pick late. Bears had a punt. Amon-Ra St. Brown, got in the field goal range, and Jake Bates walked it off with the gun. So, listen, Detroit has some moves they need to make in terms of their coaching staff below Dan Campbell. Good news is for them, they have one of the 5 best GMs in the sport in Brad Holmes running the show. I know he's going to do a great job this offseason to retool this thing. So kudos to the Lions for getting a win. The Bears will play their arch rival Packers on Saturday. And finally, the Jets and the Bills. The Jets are just a mess. 35-8, and Josh Allen played 1 snap to keep his consecutive start streak going for the Jets. I think Aaron Glenn was an amazing defense coordinator with the Lions, and let's give him another year. Let's see with a new quarterback, either Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza, or maybe one of them will pull out of the draft if they think they're going to the Jets. These are quarterbacks this year playing the New York Jets defense. And again, this is a defensive coach in what New York has. 36 touchdowns. They did not have a single interception. The Jets did not pick off one pass. You luck into a couple. I mean, like you see a couple times a ball gets batted around and it'll just kind of like accidentally fall into somebody's hands. You'd have 1 interception this year. Quarterbacks against the Jets, 36 touchdowns, no picks, 36-0 touchdown to INT ratio, good. 65% completion, 216 pass yards per game, a 110 rating, 58 QBR, and of course a 14-3 record. Like those are like MVP stats. The Jets are a train wreck. As for Buffalo, bittersweet. They could, in theory, host the AFC Championship game, but we're not going to get Bills Chargers in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So they basically closed the doors on Highmark Stadium. They played there for a half century, I think. Kudos to those Bills fans. Listen, Bills fans get mad at me. I've been hard at times on Josh Allen. I think fairly enough because last 2 years he's had the ball in his hands down through the chance to go tie or win the game against the Chiefs has come up empty both times. But I've said it for years. I don't think you'll find a more loyal fan base in the entire National Football League. This is a Buffalo Bills fan base that witnessed a team in the 1990s do something that no team before or since has ever done. Go to 4 straight Super Bowls. And they lost every single one of them. All 4. Giants, Washington, Dallas twice. Lost all 4. Then, fast forward to 1999, you got a playoff game at the Tennessee Titans. Looks like you're going to win it. Wild card round. And the Music City Miracle happens. And you don't go to the playoffs for another 18 years. In that 18-year stretch and slightly beyond, you get to be tortured by the greatest quarterback who ever played the game, Tom Brady. And then once Brady leaves to go to Tampa, you get your quarterback a little before that, but around the same time, you get your quarterback, Josh Allen, who's a superhuman talent, and it just so happens to coincide with the Chiefs dynasty. And then when the Chiefs are bad, then the Patriots are back to being good. Like, it's got to be hard to be a Bills fan, to say the very least. But loyal fan base shows up. They show up in crappy weather every single week, shoveling the snow, seeing them with the players. Like, it was really, really cool moment. So shout out to Bills fans all over the city of Buffalo. Before we get out of here, and this has been a loaded show. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Let's get a little bit of a recap of the playoff picture, which I had these graphics made Friday just in case we got the playoff format right. I am happy to say, did not have to edit anything. These are the playoffs as we thought it would happen on Friday's show. Here you go. So Denver's the 1 seed as we expected. Of course, they were going to beat the Chargers. They were supposed to win by more than that, but that's been the story of Denver's season. And then as for the playoff matchups, New England Patriots as the AFC's champions, they will host the LA Chargers. That game's going to be on Sunday Night Football in Foxborough. Patriots are a 3.5-point favorite in this game. Again, no predictions. We're going to save that for Friday. Again, Herbert has never won a playoff game. That's kind of the big monkey he needs to get off his back. As for New England, that home crowd's going to be right. This is their first home playoff game post-Brady. That fan base at Gillette Stadium is going to be insane for this game. You want to talk about home field advantage? Won't get much better on wild card weekend than what the Patriots will have. And also, too, in favor of the Chargers, New England's pass rush is kind of non-existent, and so that's kind of a good matchup for LA given the offensive line troubles we know they've had all year with both their tackles being gone for the season. If there was ever an opportunity for Herbert to win a playoff game, here you go. Like, this would, matchup-wise, at least up front, this could potentially favor the Chargers. Jacksonville as the 3 seed, as the AFC South champion against the 6 seed Buffalo Bills. I think this is the worst matchup Buffalo could have drawn. Like, the worst. Other than Houston, but no one thought the Jags were going to lose to the Titans and blow the division. Because if the Bills went to New England, they just beat New England at Gillette. Like, divisional familiarity, of course they could win that game. If they went to Pittsburgh, trust me, I remember what they did to us the Sunday after Thanksgiving in Acrisure Stadium. That was when the fire Tomlin chance happened. It was bad. And Josh Allen didn't have to do much. You have to go to Jacksonville, the hottest team in the NFL, with an excellent pass rush, the best quarterback in the NFL post-Thanksgiving against your defense. A bad rush. I think the Bills were like 31st against the run. You got to face Travis Etienne and that O-line. This is an atrocious matchup for Buffalo. Again, I don't want to spoil my pick too much, but let's just say you might want to take Jags plus 1.5 while you can before this line flips, if it flips. And then finally, there you go. My Steelers at Acrisure, Monday night. By the way, Jags, Bills is going to be Sunday at 1 o'clock. Steelers at Acrisure, AFC North champions at home against an equally red hot to the Jaguars, Houston Texans, on Monday Night Football with Houston as a 3.5-point road favorite. Again, I think that's completely fair. Tomlin is great as a home underdog for all of his flaws. He's great as a home underdog. He always has been. And the Steelers under Tomlin and under Bill Cowher. This goes back to the Chuck Noll days. Steelers have not lost a home Monday Night Football game since, I think, 1991. So that bodes in their favor. Against a questionable Texans O-line with Watt, Herbig, Highsmith, like Cam Hayward, now DK Metcalf's back in the lineup. Texans defense didn't look amazing yesterday against, Riley Leonard. So it's got to be, listen, the biggest concern I have for Pittsburgh's offense is now with DK Metcalf back, now you want to be able to take those deep shots. Will Aaron have time to do that? With Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. I think Danielle Hunter was 3rd in sacks. Will Anderson was 10th in sacks. Against this O-line, you could get away with that against Baltimore, who had virtually no pass rush to speak of. Against Houston, probably the best D-line in football. It's not great. Not great at all. As for the NFC playoff picture, we'll show you that. Seattle is the 1 seed, as we expect on the show. The Chicago Bears, 2 seed and the NFC North champion, will host their arch rival of over a century, the Green Bay Packers. That game is going to be Saturday night on Prime Video, so Definitely get at least your free subscription if you want to catch this game. Too many games on streaming platforms. That's all I got to say. Bears host the Packers, though. So Chicago, the line is oddly flipped. It was Green Bay -1.5. It's flipped to Chicago -1.5. This might be the bleak bet game. Bryce the bleak bet, the one game each and every week I have zero confidence in predicting. But hey, you got to predict them all. Just because of how thin the margins have been between these two teams. It came down to a Caleb Williams pick at Lambeau. The last time they played just a couple of weeks ago, Packers were up 10 without Jordan Love in the fourth, and then Chicago makes the insane comeback. Caleb makes those two plays to Ja'Day Walker and to DJ Moore. But again, we talk about home field advantage. Bears fans haven't seen a home playoff win since 2010, which ironically was the last year they faced the Packers in the playoffs. They lost in that NFC Championship game to Rodgers and the crew. That's going to be a fun matchup. That might be the closest game. I'm not just saying this because they just played an overtime game. That feels like the game most likely to get an overtime finish. Philadelphia as the 3 seed, the NFC East champions and the defending Super Bowl champions hosting the beat up San Francisco 49ers. Philly, that line is, if you wanted to take Philadelphia, good time to get it was yesterday because it was at 3.5. Now the line has climbed up to 4.5 in favor of the Eagles. Again, teams with no pass rush, the Niners are at the top of that list. They're dead last in the NFL in sacks this year. No team who's been dead last in sacks, get to a Super Bowl, has ever gotten to a conference championship game. Niners hoping to break that streak, but I can't say I'm terribly optimistic about their chances. We know Philly can get to the quarterback, and they could have a lot of success up front. And finally, the NFC South champions by virtue of an Atlanta Falcons win, the Carolina Panthers at home against a team they did just beat a month ago, to be fair. In the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are huge favorites in this game. It was at 9.5, went up to 10. Now it's up to 10.5. So I would probably stay away from this because it feels like a backdoor cover is imminent. The Rams defense has not been that good as of late. And again, Stafford did have multiple turnovers against the Panthers about a month ago. Kind of cost the Rams the NFC West when it's all said and done. So I guess at least it aided in costing the Rams the NFC West, that and the Falcons game. But I don't know if I like Rams -10.5. That's a lot of points for a road team in a playoff game. Like, that's against a team they just lost to, by the way, too. Even if as bad as Carolina looked the last couple of weeks. All right. What a week this is going to be. What a month of playoff football. We still got 3 more games left in the college football playoff. We've still got, 13 NFL playoff games. You wouldn't want it either way. And the Steelers are in, ladies and gentlemen. Steelers are in as the AFC North champions, and I'm very, very, very happy about that. So, with that said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. Very exciting episode Wednesday. Not only will we have Bryson's Best 10 and some other segments, we will have a segment we do every year at this time. Playoff weaknesses, the number one reason each of the 14 playoff teams will not win the Super Bowl. What's going to bite them in the butt in postseason football? We'll give you that on Wednesday's show. And, of course, discuss more of the playoff scenarios, storylines, and what have you. And, of course, Friday, playoff predictions. So I hope you have a great week, everybody. Please continue to stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Let's freaking go, Steelers. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.